And welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people just like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Before I introduce today's guest, I just want to let you guys know that Own Your Health, which is the third collaboration I've done with Glenn Mercer, is going to be available next week. So please be sure you're on my mailing list so I can email you all the ways to get the bonuses, which are not only a bunch of free recipes, but you can get the Audible copy for free if you buy when we say. So make sure you get on my list before we send that out. I contributed 81 recipes to this book and about 35 from my friends who are well-known bloggers, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So today's guest comes all the way from Phoenix. He actually interned at the True North Health Center, if I'm not mistaken, but that's not where I met him. I actually met him at a college where I was attending a lecture 6 years ago of Dr. Alan Goldhammer. He's got a great story of recovery using, of course, plants. Please welcome Dr. Benjamin Benulis. Thanks so much for doing this.
Hey, Chef AJ, good to see you again. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm real excited to have a conversation and share and be here today.
You're so welcome. And I loved your story. So I'm going to let you tell it because I watched a bunch of your YouTubes yesterday and I have lots of questions based on those. But why don't you tell our audience, in case they're not familiar with you, who you are and how you came to the conclusions you've come to about health and diet?
Sure. So my name is Dr. Benjamin Benulis. And before I was a doctor, I worked as an engineer in the telecom industry for like 9-10 years. And I really didn't have any interest in anything like, diet or health or anything like that. And I definitely didn't think there was any sort of connection. I was well bought into just the pharmaceutical model of things until I got sick in my late 20s. And at the time, I didn't really know what was going on. There was no there was no manual to figure it out, but I basically had chronic fatigue, chronic muscle pain, aching all over my body, eczema on my hands, really, really bad digestive issues, like really bad, and brain fog to where I was having a hard time just doing my job and functioning day to day. And so there's not really a name for this disease. It's just sort of like, I don't feel good. And it just progressed and progressed and progressed. Until it became difficult to do my job. I just wanted to sleep during the weekends. Every meal I ate felt like it was just going to just like tear me apart. And so I started eventually, when things got really bad, because it took me a while to swallow my pride and go, I guess I should go see the doctor. And, you think that you come to them like, I have these problems, and they give you a medicine, and then you're healed and you're good. And you go on, life is rosy after that. But not quite what happened. I pretty much got the runaround. No one really seemed to care, could like figure out what was wrong. They do a bunch of blood tests on me. And, thank goodness I had insurance, because they were like doing all these lab tests. Like, well, good news. Like, we got the lab tests and everything looks normal. So awesome. And of course, that doesn't help me feel better. Right. And so, they put me on some prescription medications that, and I hadn't even got a diagnosis of anything. And they put me on some prescription and over-the-counter medications that just really didn't do much or made me worse. And so eventually I just got tired of like going to this gastroenterologist and going to the dermatologist and just kind of get like appointments of people who didn't have a clue, like, to be honest. And so I eventually said, okay, forget this. Like, I got to figure this out because, if they do, it's going to take them a long time, which they may never. So I just started researching and looking into all this stuff, reading articles, reading books, watching documentaries, things like that. And, trying a bunch of things. And, I kept coming across this, if you change your diet, like, you can heal from these chronic health conditions. And I thought, oh, well, that sounds kind of good, but I'm not ready to go that route. That's crazy. Like, that's a little far fetched. So I just tried like supplements and things like that. And eventually I got to the point where it was like, well, I've exhausted everything else I can figure out. So I guess I'm going to give this whole like eating healthier thing a shot. And I really didn't like have a strategy. I was just like, I should eat more fruits and vegetables. Cause I think in kindergarten, they said like, those are the good foods you should eat more of. And when I really like checked in with myself, I was like, wow, I don't really eat any fruits and vegetables. I just eat, pizza and Chinese food and burritos. And, maybe there's occasional leaf of lettuce in there, but really I'm really not doing the fruits and vegetables at all. So I said, okay, I don't like to cook at all. I don't like to be involved in the kitchen. I just microwave everything. So what I'll do is I will use a blender, because that's like a microwave, right? Like you open it up, you throw in the food, and you close it, and you hit a few buttons, and then bam, a little while later, food's ready, like magic, right? So I had this mentality, I was lazy. So I just started throwing whatever in the blender and drinking it. And, sometimes it tasted good, sometimes it tasted terrible, but I started to notice that my symptoms started to improve. And it was then that I decided, okay, well, I should figure out some recipes for these smoothies. Like I can just throwing like broccoli in with like bananas and pears and like, jalapeno pepper and hoping it tastes good. It's not going to work that way. So I started looking up recipes on YouTube, and that was just like opening up, like a good version of Pandora's box. Like just, wow, okay, all these people are like healing from chronic disease and doing raw foods and plant-based diets. And I found out about like T. Colin Campbell and Caldwell Esselstyn, and it just became like a full-time hobby of like learning this stuff. And it took me, and then I dove into lifestyle change full on. Became a vegan within a few months of that. Just started hitting the fruits and vegetables really hard, raw foods, and like not only got well, but got to feeling better than I knew you could feel. Like there was like, here I was before, and then I got sick, but then after I changed my diet, I went like off the screen. And so I became very evangelical. It's like telling everybody, no, oh, you got to do this, like plant-based diets, raw foods, like fruits and vegetables, green smoothies, like everybody has to know. And of course, everyone thought I was crazy because I didn't have any visible signs of being sick in the first place. So they thought Ben was faking it when he was being sick. Now he's just being a weirdo with all these smoothies. We're not going to listen to him. But I knew just through the course of this, like meeting a lot of people that got into this because also they had chronic diseases and were getting results. I knew that it worked, and I realized there was a big gap because I had been to all these doctors who didn't tell me a darn thing about diet, even gastroenterologists who their job is to like work with your digestive system, just think food's not even an issue. And so there was a big gap in what was available. And I said, okay, I hit 30, was kind of dissatisfied with my job. I had this real big paradigm revelation about how health worked. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be the doctor that's going to help the people like me who couldn't get any answers. And so, so since then it's exploded, like, veganism, plant-based diets, all that has exploded in popularity. But there's still plenty of people running around out there who don't know, and they're putting themselves on like immunosuppressive drugs where it's like, oh, your immune system's attacking your body, so we're going to suppress your immune system so it stops doing that. This is kind of a problem. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I kind of need your immune system. So offering, a better strategy, and it works. It's worked for plenty of people I've worked with. And so that's really my job now is to help people heal with diet and lifestyle and, fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're not the first doctor I've talked to that actually became a doctor because of being a patient and being unsatisfied with the care and.
And I think that, in my opinion, like the best ones are, because if you just go into it thinking like, oh, this is a fun way to make a living, people like me, I'll make a lot of money, but you can't really like empathize with anybody who's coming in the door, you're going to have a hard time, I think. I don't know. I think like there's a lot to be said about, people with personal health journeys. And AJ, I know you've had yours too, as well.
And similar to you, mine was really caused by not eating fruits and vegetables for 43 years. Even though I was a vegan, that's the hilarious thing, is that I could still manage to get to almost 200 pounds and have the beginning of colon cancer and be vegan for 26 years. But like you, if I watched your YouTube channel correctly, it sounded like you were 100% raw for a very long time. And then when you went to True North, you started including some of the cooked foods, the vegetables and starches. And now you're not 100%, but you feel just as good. Because for me, for healing, I use the 100% raw, but now I need me some starch.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But I still am like, I can't just go on all cooked foods. Like I have to have, if I don't have my fruit in the morning and my smoothie for lunch, it's like, it's gonna be hell to pay. Like I get crazy.
You mentioned brain fog. What does that feel like? Because that seems to be a symptom. And like I talked to people that didn't know they had celiac. It seems to be a symptom in so many diseases.
So I don't think that there's like, a specific diagnosis for it, but it's definitely like if you have trouble concentrating, like I used to do a lot of spreadsheets in my old job. It was like I had to sit down and do a lot of math and we'll do a lot of analytical thinking stuff. And what used to be easy became hard and nothing changed. Like how did it go from like, okay, I could look at a spreadsheet and do what I needed to do with it to why, like sitting there for 5 minutes, like staring at it, like eyes hurting, like why can't I figure this out? So that was brain fog for me, at least. Difficulty concentrating, difficulty thinking clearly.
Great. So how do you help patients now?
So now I work with people one-on-one and basically coach them through with diet and lifestyle. And I also am in private practice as a chiropractor, and I do that too. But mainly I coach people all over the world. I have people in like Indonesia right now. And so, yeah, and just basically transition them on to a whole food plant-based diet, mostly are all raw, and just work with them to heal themselves, help them through all the bumps in the road that come up, because changing your diet and lifestyle on paper, I can just say, hey, go and eat fruits and vegetables and you're good for the rest of your life, right? But this rubber meeting the road's a little tough. There's a lot of things that come up. There's, family members who are unsupportive, partners that are unsupportive, jobs they got to navigate through, social situations. So I help them through all of that stuff to make sure that they, stay accountable and stick with it. And that's what I do now.
So do you work on the phone through Zoom like this? Because you don't have to be in Phoenix then just to see you.
Nope, through Zoom. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I've posted some links because I know people could even, just like Dr. Goldhammer, have a free call with you to see if working with you is something that would work for them. Yeah,
absolutely. Happy to do that with people.
Yeah. So what kind of miracles have you seen in your patients?
Well, let's see. I've had, you're probably familiar with ulcerative colitis. So that's an autoimmune condition of the large bowel where it becomes inflamed and they have horrible digestive symptoms we won't get into. And a lot of them get put on immunosuppressive drugs. But then eventually it gets to the point where they tell them, well, you have to cut your colon out, right? Like we have to cut it out. And then you're no longer having a normal bowel movement anymore. You just got a bag taped to the side of your stomach. You survive, but like you're still rolling without a colon, as they say, but we'd like to avoid that if possible. And so I have, I had one student who, he did my program. They went into, they told him he had to have the surgery. And he said, well, I'm going to try this first. And they went and rescoped him after he did the program and said, well, something's wrong, right? Because we got to do your scope again because this scope we have is a normal colon. And that's obviously a mistake. They scope him again. Like, no, we didn't make a mistake. It is a normal colon. You no longer have the signs of the disease. What happened? What'd you do? And he says, oh, well, this doctor put me on this program where I eat all these fruits and vegetables and I did that. And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever, get out of here. Just come back if it comes back. And, had someone who had lupus. She was put on this drug called prednisone for it. And the prednisone like threw her blood sugar off so bad that she would like yell at her husband, yell at her kids, like, nah. And I remember being on a call with her and her husband. And he's like, if you can just get her mood stabilized, that's even worse than the pain she goes through, because lupus, like the side effects of the drugs to treat the disease have become worse than the disease. So, she did my program, she got symptom free. And what was really cool was that she had two chronic disease conditions she didn't even tell me about that healed until later. She's like, oh, well, I've always had this thing on my face that, that like the skin condition on my face that I've put an ointment on and put like creams and all this stuff. And that just went away. And then she also had, I guess, precancerous lymph nodes in her armpit that were swollen. And then when she went back for a checkup, they're like, well, your lymph nodes are no longer swollen. So, when you supply the body the conditions to create health, it creates health. And so it's not like this is some sort of program to only treat one specific disease or one condition. Like that's not really how the body works. Like these names of diseases are arbitrary diagnoses that we give. But when you provide the body the conditions to create health, all diseases tend to just reverse.
Yeah, a lot of people are commenting on what you said about prednisone, and now I'm scared because I was just prescribed 9 days today for a torn rotator cuff that for 9 months it's been like killing me. So now I'm going to think twice about taking it. But there's something about filling the prescription, even if you don't take it, that makes me feel better. I can't explain it, like just knowing it's there in case, I guess. But thanks for saying that. So there's a question about hypothyroidism from Andrea. Can her hypothyroidism be cured with diet?
So the answer is probably, and I don't really like to use the word cured, but we can reverse. Most hypothyroidism is an autoimmune hypothyroidism where the immune system attacks the thyroid. And that can definitely be reversed with diet. Now, there are other hypothyroidisms that are caused by like iodine deficiency and some rare ones, but we can run some labs and say, okay, is it Hashimoto's? Is it autoimmune thyroid hypothyroid? And if so, yeah, definitely.
Nice. So let's find the question here. Oh yeah. So a lot of people, Annette's saying her son has all sort of colitis, wish he would eat this way. Do you know who Shamiz is?
Shamiz, no.
Oh, he's a guy with a channel who basically had all sort of colitis and, had like a ton of he was just really, really sick. And he went on a healing diet like this, mostly raw food, mostly smoothies. And I interviewed him for the GI Health Summit. But I think one of the saddest things I ever saw was once when I was working at True North, it was a 29-year-old guy who had that, and he had his colon out and he's had a bag, and he was like, he said, nobody ever told me there was another option. And, once you get your colon out, you can't get another colon.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like the guy who found me didn't get another option. He's just like, I really, really don't want to lose my colon. So I'm going to just type into Google, like, how can I heal ulcerative colitis naturally? Like just sort of people are like, okay, I hear that alternative medicine stuff is hocus pocus, but like, I really want to keep my colon. So I'm at least try it because they're going to cut it out anyway. So you might as well give it a shot. But yes, it's very tragic that people get, organs cut out of them. Thyroids get cut out, it's like we should exhaust conservative measures first. I think, what's funny is Dr. Goldhammer at True North used to be called the Center for Conservative Therapy. But I think maybe, people thought that was like political or something. So we had to change the name to True North Health. But it's just this idea that like, let's conserve your body and your organs and your body parts before, let's try that. And then if that doesn't work, then we can cut them out.
Yeah. So tell us about your time at True North. When was that? And how was that experience for you?
Oh my God. That was just, one of the highlights of my life. That was September to December of 2016. So like right around the election time, last election cycle, basically like this time 4 years ago. And it was pretty wild because Dr. Clapper was still working there, and he would, he would work with the interns every Wednesday. And I mean, I've known the guy for years. I've followed him. Like, so it was like really like an opportunity to meet your heroes. Then like on the interns, wow, he just hammered us. Like he wanted to make sure we walked out of there, like being good doctors, like knowing our stuff. So he would just like quiz you and back you in a corner and like ask you all this crazy stuff that he expected you to know. And then when you didn't know, he would kind of like act like, oh my God, I can't believe you don't know this. Here, you need to know this. So that was really cool. And then just getting to see these health stories happen firsthand, because, I can come on here and I can tell everybody I healed, or, people that worked with me healed, or you can tell your story. But when someone comes in sick and you watch them over the course of a month or 2 months, go from like chronically ill, diabetic, hypertensive, autoimmune, whatever, and you see them get well in front of your eyes over a short period of time. There's like, because, you know, you kind of, when someone posts a forks over knives article, like this guy lost 150 pounds, you kind of know the end of the movie before you see the beginning. And this, like, you're watching it all unfold. You're watching it happen. You don't know if they're going to get well, but they always do. And I think that was the most miraculous and most fun part of being at True North.
Yeah. Did you ever water fast yourself?
I did not. I missed my opportunity. I'm kicking myself. But no, I did not water fast.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah. How long were you there for?
3 months.
Wow, that must have been great. And then one of the best things about there is you don't have to cook.
No, yeah, you can just eat. The food is amazing. I mean, Ramsey's Bravo is just like next level. Like the food there is just, it's so good.
Yep. So we have a few questions from live viewers. Stephanie says, I've had muscular fatigue and elevated CK for 6 months and blood labs run and EMG all normal, no diagnosis, still in pain. Where do I go to solve this? I'm whole food plant-based diet for years, normal weight on low side, exercise regularly, complete mystery where I should look for the answer.
Let's see. I would say, talk to me. Let's do a free consult. We'll dig around and figure out, like, if I can't help you, I'll find someone who can.
That's so nice. Thank you. So here's something I have to stop being vain and just wear my glasses. From Cheryl, I was diagnosed with Still's disease and told I would have to take Acterma or something similar for the rest of my life. What do you think? I don't like the thought of doing anything for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Still's disease offhand, so I would have to look that one up.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions, says Corinne, for whole food plant-based one can eat when you have multiple myeloma, cancer of the bone marrow?
So I mean, multiple myeloma is pretty serious cancer. So, you know, it's really no different, the whole food plant-based that you eat when you're sick versus when you're well. I don't think it should interfere with your ability, like if you need a feeding tube and have somebody, you know, shoot green smoothie down your throat. I don't think it comes to that, but I would say just, yeah, and I'm not making any claims that whole food plant-based or raw vegan can cure any sort of cancer, but it's definitely like in your best interest to create as much health as possible. So yeah, I would say, you know, it really doesn't change. I would say lean more towards the raw fruits and vegetables than the cooked plants, but do something you can sustain.
Or maybe consider going to True North for a water fast. Dr. Goldhammer is going to be on the show tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific time.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. You can do a free consult with True North. If you're like, well, that sounds kind of crazy, I don't know about the water fast, call them. You talk to them for free, just like you talk to me for free. Have a chat and they'll decide whether or not they think you can help you.
Nice. I looked up Still's disease and it says a rare type of inflammatory arthritis that features fevers, rash, and joint pain.
Okay. Yeah, I'd have to look more into it to be able to comment.
Okay, cool. So what do you do for fun?
Well, Arizona is a big outdoor state. So there's a lot of hiking. You know, it's hot in Phoenix. You travel 1-2 hours north or south, you can get to, you know, the mountains, you can get to, you know, rivers, lakes, and streams, cooler climate. So love that stuff. Camping, snowboarding in the winter is actually not that far away either. I was a competitive hacky sack player for many years. Still do that from time to time. Also do amateur stand-up comedy. Hopefully the comedy clubs will be open back up.
Wait, we have like a parallel life. I do it too. You should come.
You were on like Johnny Carson and stuff, right?
Yeah. But right now I'm just doing on Zoom and I'm in a class. You should be, if I knew you did this, because I'm in a wonderful class right now that gives us opportunities for performing at Flappers, which is a comedy club, but we're doing all our shows online. I'm doing it with my husband. Yeah, I didn't know that you were into that. That's so cool.
And I forgot that you used to be professional stand-up comedian, so I mentioned it, but now I remember.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I would love that because we used to have a vegan venue in Phoenix, and I used to do a stand-up set that like 60% of the jokes were vegan jokes, and I could really only tell from a vegan audience, like no one else would really think it was that funny. But yeah, I love that stuff.
That's so cool. I'm glad I asked this question. If a class comes up again, I'll tell you about it. Did you hang out with Robert Cheek when he lived in Phoenix? He doesn't live
Oh
there
yeah,
anymore.
absolutely. And we both used to live in Austin together. I've known him for a long time. I've known him since before I was vegan, like back in the MySpace days. Yeah, I've known him a long time.
That's so funny. Monica says, are you of Lithuanian descent?
Good question. I do have a Lithuanian last name, but my dad was adopted, so I'm not actually Lithuanian, but I rarely get that question. Very few people can put that together, but yes, I have a Lithuanian name, but I'm not actually Lithuanian.
Very cool. R says, do you have success in helping whole food plant-based patient who has mild psoriasis? What diet would help and how long would you take to see results?
Sure. So I've definitely helped people with psoriasis. You got to transition to a more or all raw program for a while. I've noticed that some people with psoriasis, this is maybe like 10, 15%, have like emotional trauma that they need to work through as well, which is a separate discussion on how to heal from that. But that's what I would suggest. And it's like, how long is it going to take? Well, how long are you willing to give it? Because it took me 3 to 4 months to heal from what I had. But I started to see results right away. So if you're seeing results doing it, you keep going. But if you've hit, sounds like you've hit some sort of plateau, it may be time to reevaluate what you're doing.
Yeah, I watched it. Like I said, I spent all day watching as many YouTubes as I could. I actually saw your interview with Eric Adams, and I'll be having him on the show next week. He wrote this great new book. And you told the story about that when you experienced a release from having a session. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah. I definitely, when I went to chiropractic school, basically thinking I was just going to do this stuff and just help people with diet. And I wanted to practice in Texas where you can't be a naturopath, long story, ended up in Arizona where you can, still love what I do, but I kind of backdoored into all this mind body stuff, which is super important. A lot of people have past trauma, childhood trauma, abuse, things like that. And it can actually contribute towards manifesting as chronic disease later in life, especially with things like chronic pain, fibromyalgia, things like that. And in some cases, autoimmunity. And so there's like mind-body modalities that can help people heal through that. Of course, if they don't change their diet, they really don't have a prayer, but like the two combined are really powerful.
Yeah. Jamie says, any suggestions for Parkinson's?
Parkinson's is a tough one because part of the brain that actually secretes dopamine has died. So what I would say is make a consult with True North. They have a protocol. I don't do it. I haven't learned enough about it, but I've seen it get results. That it's basically an over-the-counter supplement protocol that they use that really helps Parkinson's. Cannabis, medicinally, not like the smoking it kind, but the like if it's in an oil or a tincture, it can help as well. But I think the supplement protocol that they do at True North is what I've seen like real good results with.
Okay, a couple of you are asking how to contact him. I typed it in at the very beginning of the chat. It's here again, and it's also in the show notes. Florence says, do you have a specific weight loss plan?
I don't do weight loss. So there's plenty of people who do weight loss. Okay. If you eat whole food, plant-based, you'll lose weight, but I'm more about creating health and reversing disease. So I know like Chef AJ, you've written books on weight loss, right? So if you ask, just read Chef AJ's books on that stuff, if that's what you're looking for.
Well, thank you. Do you have any plant-based colleagues or family? Linda wants to know.
Family, no, they haven't come around. I'm still the black sheep. My brother does keto last time I checked. And, my dad like says it's a good idea, but never follows through. No, I have definitely have plant-based colleagues. There's a number of doctors in the Phoenix area who are plant-based as well. One of which I interned at True North while I was a resident. But if you're looking to find plant-based doctors, there's a website, plantbaseddoctors.org. If you're sick of going to a doctor who's telling you start eating chicken again, kick them to the curb, find someone on plant-based doctors. That's my advice.
Absolutely. Are you on that website, by the way?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Great. Terrific. Gina says, do you do telehealth, and do you take insurance for people on Medicare?
Answer question one, yes, do telehealth. But no, I don't, Medicare doesn't cover, anything that I would do on telehealth.
Great. My daughter-in-law has lupus. Would she be able to contact you?
Absolutely. Would love to be able to help her.
Great. Have you worked with people with clinical depression? What's clinical depression mean as opposed to, I mean, is there a non-clinical depression?
I mean, I think that means that they've been diagnosed. I don't specifically seek that out. People have, with other conditions have seen me who also deal with depression, but that's not a condition that I am going to say that I treat or I want to work with. I can definitely refer that to other people who deal with it better than I do. But
like Dr. Doug Lyle, for example, or Dr. Jen Hawk, True North psychologist.
Yeah, absolutely. That's let's just send them that way, because they're both awesome.
We're getting a lot of questions, Dr. Benulis, about what to eat. Like, for example, Karen, what to eat with rosacea, but it's kind of the same diet for every disease. I mean, you may tweak the amount of fat or the amount of raw, but it's basically, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, no sugar, oil, salt. I mean, I don't know if you're SOS free, but at least minimal. And that's kind of the answer, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. We can tell. And it sounds kind of strange to people because they're like, well, isn't there a different diet for every disease? Well, there's one diet for health, and health is really the absence of disease. And so the medical model is that basically there's a disease and then there's a cure, whether it's a pill or it's an injection or it's a powder or it's whatever. And it's sort of this quid pro quo model of like disease A takes pill A and disease B takes pill B. And with health, the health model doesn't really work like that, but people still sort of drag that medical model over when they get into the health model and think like, okay, well, I got to have blueberries for lupus, and I got cherries for diabetes, and I got to have pomegranates for, heart disease. But really all plant foods promote health. And so it'll work. I mean, people may have allergies or sensitivities to like nightshades or gluten or whatever, and you work around that, but the fundamentals are the same, like you mentioned. So absolutely.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. There's one diet that caused all these diseases. It's called the standard American diet.
Good point. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. One diet to cause them all, one diet to reverse them all.
Yeah, people don't say, well, I wonder what diet caused my diabetes or my obesity or my heart disease or it's all the same diet, processed food, animal products. Do you cook for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So like, what does a day look like for you now? Because I watched all your what I eat in a day videos, but they've changed a little bit.
Yeah. So pretty much, and it changes seasonally because I do a lot of fruit. First meal of the day is high water fruit. Today I had 2 big papayas. Okay. I haven't actually eaten papaya in a while because the mangoes have been so good, but it was fantastic. For lunch, I do a green smoothie, which is generally just really ripe bananas and half a head of lettuce in the Vitamix, full Vitamix, full of that. And then dinner, I do a salad. Usually I tend to just like to eat a lot of greens with some sort of homemade dressing, whether it's like, just blend mangoes and throw it on, or like lemon tahini or something like that. And then I'll do steamed potatoes, steamed rice, like steamed buckwheat, something like that. Maybe occasionally I'll bake potatoes, and occasionally I'll steam some greens, but I don't really like to get too fancy with sauces or anything like that. Especially being at True North, like I just got used to eating it plain, and it was fine. So it's simple, not a lot of ingredients. I don't get fancy. I wouldn't consider myself a chef at all. And I kind of like it that way.
I think those of us that eat this way, we wouldn't do it if we didn't love it. But if you haven't experienced True North or Neuro Adaptation or getting off all the chemicals, people just think we're crazy. But we love our food just like they maybe love theirs.
Yeah. And so you have this idea like, oh, I could never do that. I could never eat that way. I would miss cheeseburgers so much, or I would miss pizza so much. Like, you're not going to miss what it does to you. Like, I'll tell you that much. And once you start feeling good, that's motivation enough to do it. And eventually, like you said, neuro adaptation, your taste buds change. Now I could never go back to that stuff. I mean, I love the food that I eat. I wouldn't want it any other way. But like people who don't get it, who haven't done it, that sounds like a stretch, but that's how the brain neuroadapts and we begin to love the health food. It can happen. Like, you don't believe me? It's happened to plenty of people. You can change your taste buds and start to love healthy food and not even want. You know, what's interesting is I used to basically eat whatever I wanted. And I never gained weight or anything like that. And so I thought it was just because I had good genes. And so like at a work thing, they'd be passing around brownies, like they brought in brownies or whatever. And I would be the guy that took 2 brownies. And people would be like, oh, that's going to catch up with you when you're older. Like, you're getting away with that now. But, you know, and I'd be like, no, I have good genes. I'm going to be fine. Like, I was in this denial game. The irony is that it caught up to me, but not that I gained weight. So when people are like, can you do weight loss? I'm like, no, don't talk to me about weight loss. I never lost any weight. So it caught up to me. I got really sick, but I didn't gain weight. And then once I changed my diet and then they would pass around the brownies again and be like, no, I'm good. Like, I had a mango smoothie today. Like, no, thanks. And it'd be like, how are you refusing this? You're the one who used to eat it all. Like, well, you know, things have changed, you know? So, but it was kind of funny what people remember and what people say.
Yeah. I love that, you know, because Dr. Lyle says we're supposed to love healthy food. When people say to me like, oh, it's so sad you didn't have cake for your birthday, you don't have any treats. Well, every meal is a treat, and not being obese and being stuck in the pleasure trap, that's the treat. That's the real treat. Health is the treat.
Yeah.
Not addiction. Yeah. So are you strictly SOS free a la Goldhammer?
You know, pretty much. I got invited out to a vegan restaurant for my friend's birthday the other night, and there's probably salt in whatever I ate. But you know, yes.
But at home, you don't add it at home, basically.
No.
Yeah, good. Well, good. Yeah. Are you single by any chance? Because you'd be quite a catch.
Oh, that's not really something I want to talk about. But
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to have asked it then. I apologize. Okay. It's just that there were comments, and that's why I said it. So please accept my apologies. Okay. Thank you. And I can edit this out if it's troublesome. Carmen says, can sarcoidosis go into remission or be reversed with a raw diet?
Sarcoidosis. You know, if the plaques have already formed, like it can be reversed to some degree, but there's a point where it can progress, where some of what happens, the scar tissue, can be irreversible, but it can definitely improve. But if you catch it early enough, yeah, you can definitely like fully reverse it.
That is great. Obviously not right now, but do you travel a lot? People are asking how you manage to eat this way when you travel.
Oh yeah, sure. I travel a fair amount. You probably know Robbie Barbero.
Yes, very well.
So he invented this life hack that I use all the time, but it's basically you take the banana box, which is a 40-pound box of bananas, and you know, you have the boxes left over because if you're like me, you buy bananas by the case from time to time, and you fill it with fruit, and you fill it with plant foods, and it fits perfectly on the overhead container on the plane. So you pack your carry-on and you know your backpack, and maybe you have your suitcase, which you check, and then you just put your fruit and your vegetables like up above. And I find that works the best. You know, if you're driving in a car, you can bring an Instant Pot, you know, you can bring a rice cooker. It's doable on the road. You just kind of got to plan ahead. You know, you can't just expect that, you know, you're going to show up somewhere and they're going to have what you need. And that goes with anything doing whole food plant-based. You're going to BYO most of the time. You just get used to it. And then you realize you can bring your own on a plane, on a boat, on a car, on a motorcycle, wherever you go.
That's great. Yeah, it can be done. Julianne says, can you address food allergies, for example, tomatoes, in relation to autoimmune disease, such as psoriasis?
So a lot of people with psoriasis are nightshade sensitive, which includes tomatoes, includes eggplant, includes bell peppers, white potatoes. And nightshades are high in a compound you may have heard of called nicotine, which is toxic. Not nearly as much as tobacco. Tobacco is also a nightshade. And so people with psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis can be nightshade sensitive to all the nicotine that's in those plants. So they got to avoid them. But there's 80,000 other edible plants. So there's options. But, have people healed from food allergies? I have. I don't know how I did it. Because I was doing so many different things. It's hard to pinpoint it. So it's not, I have seen people reverse them. But if it's like, hey, write the manual of how do I heal from food allergies, I wouldn't know what to tell people, but I've seen it happen. But otherwise, people say, oh, I can't have gluten or I can't have tomatoes, or like there's plenty of other plant foods out there. You can work around it.
Absolutely. People are asking if you've had any success working with people with asthma.
Asthma? I haven't really worked with anyone one-on-one. I would say that, the two biggest things I would say for asthma, if you're dealing with that, is number one, plant-based, dairy is probably the most inflammatory thing. I've seen so many people who don't even go fully plant-based. They just get off dairy and their asthma improves. And then it's been shown in the literature that people who get regular chiropractic adjustments use their inhaler less often, experience less severe symptoms. What's interesting is the amount of air they can blow out of their lungs doesn't change, but the need for the inhaler and the severity of the reported symptoms decreases. So I would say cut out dairy, get into chiropractic care, especially if it's a young kid. Plant-based as much as possible.
I didn't realize this, but after talking, and I'm sure Nate Gershfeld, Dr. Nate Gershfeld, has been on the show. He's coming back actually with his grandmother who inspired him to become a chiropractor. There's two different schools of chiropractic, and I wasn't aware of that.
There's many. It's a spectrum of philosophies, and I don't know if you remember that talk 6 years ago where I met you, Dr. Goldhammer. Dr. Gershfeld was there too. That's the first time I met him. But yeah, there's many approaches. There's over 200 different techniques. So he does a technique that probably only 100 people in the country practice. I do a technique that maybe 200 people in the country practice. There's a wide range of approaches, and it's not like medicine where everybody has to fall in line and do it the exact same way or kicked out of the club. It's kind of, we all just do everything a little bit differently and everybody still manages to find a way to get along. It's kind of like the Jews. I know we're both Jewish, right? So it's there's Reform and there's Orthodox and there's Reconstructionist, and we're all still under one umbrella, but we do things a little bit different.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, there was we had Dr. Stephanie Peacock from True North, and she did something. I can't even think of the name of it now, but it really hurts. The type that she does. It's a very specific kind that I never heard of either. Some kind of release technique that was
okay.
Yeah, it's I love chiropractic. I'm so lucky I finally found one here. I mean, I loved going to Dr. Goldhammer when I was there. He's an amazing chiropractor.
Yeah, I remember I was interning there and he's like, well, let's see what your skills are. And I was like, I'm adjusting Dr. Gold. This is one of the most interesting moments of my life.
Oh, that's neat. That's so cool I love that he does that, because that's really cool. Let's see. Apple says, do you work with people who have chronic fatigue? Can we hear your insights into myalgic encephalomyelitis? Yeah.
Okay. So that's the autoimmune disease I ended up having. So am I an expert in healing from that? I would say absolutely. Chronic fatigue, it's an interesting beast because there's a lot of ins and outs and what have yous on the cause and things like that. But definitely plant-based diet, raw or high raw, is definitely super important for that.
Yeah. What do you think it is? Because it's so true. I don't think people have to be 100% wrong unless they want to be, but it just seems to be unparalleled for all these healing stories I hear. What do you think it is about the raw that's just so special in cases of reversing chronic disease?
Sure. So to some degree, eating food uses the body vital energy. Okay. And so if you're eating food that's really hard to digest, like cheeseburgers and pizza, you're going to suck up all your vital energy just fighting off that food. You go more and more towards on the spectrum towards whole plant foods and then raw foods. These foods require less and less energy to digest and assimilate, and that frees up the body for more healing. And then of course the ultimate is that you don't eat anything at all. You do a fast. And of course you have to rest and everything so that the body can just use all vital energy on healing. That's the ultimate. So it's pretty ironic that people say food is medicine or it heals you. Like, no, it doesn't. The body heals itself. It's just like, how much work do you want to give it to do to eat the food that you consume? And raw fruits and vegetables are like the least amount of work for the body to digest and assimilate, thereby reappropriating other work towards healing.
Got it. Because our saying, what's the best raw vegetables you should consume with autoimmune disease? Any particular vitamins or minerals you need, such as omega-3, or a certain amount of water you should have daily?
Sure. Great questions. So, like we talked about before, it's not a medical model where there's a certain fruit or vegetable that's the best. You got to eat a lot of leafy greens and a lot of fruit. For omega-3s, you want to be doing flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed, a few times a week. Definitely want to be doing, everybody should be doing a B12 supplement, vegan, plant-based, raw, vegan, any of that, omnivore, B12, as well as vitamin D. So those are the two supplements that I take and I recommend people take. I think that answers that question.
That's great. That's great. So have you been able to still do your job during the pandemic? Because a lot of it's virtual.
Yeah, a lot of it's virtual. I've definitely, I have people that don't want to come into my office or chiropractic patients, and I understand. But I think if anything, I've seen, more business on the virtual stuff because people are realizing like, whoa, if I'm immune compromised and there's a pandemic, like I got to figure this out. Or like, if there's I need to just take care of my health in general because they're seeing what's happening. And it's like, they kind of knew for a long time that they should like step up their game with their health. And now it's like, this has spurred them into action. So, I think that's important to realize, like a lot of what's going on, it's, even though there's so many bad things happening, like a lot of people are waking up and going, wow, like I can't sit around and hope that like the government comes up with a vaccine or, they come up with a cure. Like I have to take my health into my own hands. So I think that's been really good as sort of a silver lining to all that's been going on.
Yeah, yes, that's true. Peter says, my partner recently had tainted plant-based meatballs, which I had to bring him to the ER for. He is now constantly in pain and weak and cold. What should we do for his possible severe gut issues?
Ooh, that's kind of out of my pay grade. I would say find a plant-based gastroenterologist who can do that kind of thing, like Angie Sadeghi, or go on plant-based doctors.
And they do telemedicine now. So Angie Sadeghi, who is a gastroenterologist, along with Dr. Vanessa Mendez, who is a gastroenterologist, can do plant-based telehealth now through the Institute of Plant-Based Medicine. I had them on the show. So if you need that resource, I'll look for that and post it. Yeah. Gut issues are not fun.
I did get plant-based. I did get food poisoning at OLAC one time, which, as you know, is a raw vegan restaurant in Orange County. So it happens. It happens. That's unfortunate that this whoever this is still has lingering symptoms. That's scary. That's like I said, talking to a gastroenterologist.
Yeah, actually, I just interviewed 40 GI doctors for an upcoming summit on GI health. And I had food poisoning too. I got it in Mexico. And I also once got it at the Wynn Hotel eating vegan in Vegas. And a lot of times it can turn into something called post-infectious IBS. So yeah, definitely want to get your gut in order. Gina says, if I wanted to try raw, do you have any recommended people to watch or read to start?
I would read, this is a bit controversial because I think this guy as a person has done some things I don't agree with, but I think the books he's written have been very, very informative and go over the science really well. But Dr. Doug Graham has a book called the 80-10-10 diet. I think if you understand how raw foods work and how to do it, this is probably the best book out there.
Great, thanks. Christina says, do you work with patients who have gout?
Gout. I mean, what I do definitely helps for gout, but I think whole food plant-based in general will help with gout. I would say like I'm really more focused on working with people specifically with autoimmune conditions. Whole food plant-based in general will reverse gout pretty easily, probably easier than an autoimmune condition.
And speaking of Dr. Graham, I don't know much about him personally, but he has a weekly show now. It's free. It's called Let's Cook Raw. It's at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I was a guest chef once. And so people can, if they want recipe ideas, they can just, watch that show.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter says, how long does food poisoning usually last? It's been 2 weeks since the ER visit.
Not that long. Usually it takes 36 to 40 hours to kick in, lasts for a day or two. So if it's become a chronic thing, it's beyond food poisoning. And I don't know enough about it to be able to help.
Absolutely. Have you worked with people with fibromyalgia? Patty asks.
A lot of people with fibromyalgia.
Yeah. That's it. You've seen good results, huh?
It varies. Fibromyalgia it's not an open shut case. Okay. Fibromyalgia is basically a bucket term that when people have chronic pain and the doctor doesn't know what it is, they say, oh, fibromyalgia, your fibros have been myalged. And I really think it's about 27 plus different diseases. And most of them respond really well to diet. Some of them, they respond really well to like gentle chiropractic care, like Dr. Gershfeld would do, or I would do. Combination of both is best. But some of it is just like really out there, inexplicable chronic pain stuff that, I don't even know, but most of the time we get results for fibromyalgia.
It's great. Let's see. I have Crohn's disease and was told I need to take probiotics for the rest of my life. How does he feel about that? Watch the summit, because most of the doctors aren't even for probiotics, at least the ones I'm interviewing.
Yeah, probiotics. Someone, I hate to say it, uninformed would offer that. You definitely want better bacteria in your gut, but you're not going to get it in pill form. You need to feed those bacteria plants, and then the good bacteria live and the bad bacteria die. Because you can take probiotics all day, but if you're sowing the garden with bad soil, the good stuff's never going to grow.
That's a really good analogy. Somebody's asking about alopecia.
Alopecia, irreversible as far as I know. Yeah, unfortunately, that's loss of hair. Like I know Cyrus from Mastering Diabetes. He has that condition. He's healed from a bunch of other stuff, and he manages type 1 diabetes. But he'll tell you he's tried everything in the book to heal from alopecia. And there are pharmaceutical medications and like magic pill shampoos and stuff. But I'm not thinking that any of that is safe or effective. But I think it's pretty much a done deal, unfortunately, with alopecia.
Yeah. That's too bad. Ruth says, do you work with people with Lyme?
Lyme is very, very tricky. So I will talk to people with Lyme, and sometimes I can help them, but it's a very complicated beast. And so oftentimes I like co-manage them with someone else, or I refer them out. That Lyme is like the last frontier.
Melinda says, can a plant-based diet help with low thyroid so that medication is not needed?
We answered that earlier. Most of the time, yes. Most low thyroid is autoimmune in nature. When you switch to a plant-based diet, you can reverse that, and your immune system stops attacking your thyroid, and then the thyroid can do its job. There are some other types of low thyroid that are different cause, that are a little bit different. But if you have a good practitioner who runs the right lab tests, because a lot of practitioners in the thyroid, they'll run like 1 or 2 markers. They'll look at like your TSH and maybe your T3, and then go, oh yeah, we need to put you on medication. But really, someone who knows what they're doing will look at about a dozen or so markers on the thyroid to really figure out what's going on, so they know the cause, and then they can address it appropriately. Most of the time, diet works, but you really want good labs with a good doctor who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, even if it doesn't work, I think people should at least try it, right? Because there's no real downside to it. I know that Dr. Goldhammer mentions to avoid gluten for people with Hashimoto's.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's good in general. I mean, I don't go out of the way to say I'm gluten-free, but no, I think we can go down the rabbit hole of like why, there's issues with gluten, but I don't think it might be a little much for today.
That's okay. Let's see. Can a plant-based diet dissolve gallstones? Abby asks.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, sometimes they get so big that they have to they need some help. Like they have like little zapper things they can do that kind of breaks them up into smaller pieces, and then it's easier to do it. But I would definitely go the diet route before just getting your gallbladder cut out, the gallstones cut out.
Yep, makes sense. Carol has an interesting question. Is it difficult to diagnose an autoimmune disease? Are there people that could have an autoimmune disease, but it never gets diagnosed?
Yeah, about 1 in 2 people who have an autoimmune disease go undiagnosed. So the statistics is about 1 in 14 Americans have one diagnosed, and then there's another 1 in 14 who are walking around undiagnosed. So 1 in 7 Americans has an autoimmune condition, but yeah, a lot of times they just haven't been formally diagnosed.
Yeah. Of all the things you do, what's your favorite? Either type of patient to work with or type of adjustment? Do you have something that really excites you?
I would say just working with people who, they get well, but also their life changes. Whether that's, they meet somebody, or they change careers, or their relationship with a family member heals. A lot of times, like, when we transform our health on the physical level, a lot of times our health transforms on the like mental, emotional, spiritual level, and people grow as people. And I think that's the coolest thing to see happen.
Yeah. I love that you have dogs or dog.
Dog. Yeah.
Yeah. They're great. I think they're very healing too.
I can bring him over if we want to get a look.
What's his name?
His name's Tuesday.
Nice. And today is Tuesday, so
today is Tuesday. Yeah.
It's even better. I'm going to post the link for you, Peter. How do you book an appointment with a plant-based GI doctor right here? It's at the Institute of Plant-Based Medicine. They have a bunch of other specialties as well, but Vanessa Mendez can do them. So there we go. Yeah. How did you name your dog Tuesday? Did you get him on a Tuesday?
It was, I got him and was like determined to name him Pickles. And, first trip to the dog park, and I'm like, come here, Pickles. Hey, Pickles, come here. Like, I just felt like such an idiot saying Pickles, Pickles, Pickles. I was just like, came up with another list of names, and it was just like, oh, Tuesday, that actually sounds like pretty good. That's unique. I'll just go with that. But it was completely arbitrary.
That's cute. It's cute. I've never heard that name before, but I do. I love dogs so much. I think they're very healing too, in addition to all the other things we're talking about.
Totally. And I've heard that like pet adoption during the lockdown has just gone up astronomically, because all these people are like, they're home alone. They want companionship. Get a dog. I think it's great.
Yeah, that's great. I think that plays a big part on our recovery, how we feel in that way. Well, it's sure been fun talking to you again. I hope it's not another 6 years next time. And that's just so funny that I have Dr. Goldhammer tomorrow. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, if I'm passing through on LA, I'll have to come by and say hi.
Yep. I'm in Indio now.
Yep.
Yeah. So everything's in the show notes. And if you guys want to book a free call with him, you can, or just check out his website or his YouTube channel. There was a great interview yesterday with Eric Adams, who has a new book coming out next week. Oh, Roller Girl says she had a Siamese cat named Tuesday. So I guess it really is a pet name.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm also really active on Instagram too. That's probably where I actually post the most. So that's just my name, Dr. Benjamin Benulis. You can find me on there too.
Perfect. I'll post the link for that as well. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Benulis, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow twice. 11 o'clock is Brenda Carey, who founded the Vegan Health and Fitness magazine. And at 2 p.m., we have the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Alan Goldhammer. Thanks again, Dr. Benulis.
Thank you, Chef AJ.